Hey guys, I'm back with another tutorial. I am working on art today for a football player, and this design is going to say my heart is on that field, and we're going to do a photo design. So I'm going to start off with the inspiration image, which is from this shirt. I'm just going to open that up. And of course, this is not my file. However, whenever there's an inspiration, we can draw from it without necessarily stealing the idea. So we're going to go ahead and create a new document. And I'm going to use my 13 by 19, 150 DPI because I don't need 300 DPI. And go ahead and create that artboard. Now from here, I'm going to start dragging my elements in. I can actually drag in my inspiration image, hover over the Photoshop, and just pull it right there onto my artboard. And I'm going to make it bigger just so that it is about the scale that my final art is going to be. And there's a few elements that we know we're going to need. We know we're going to need a heart. So I have ahead of time searched for a vector heart, and if you can't find one, I'm sure most of you have a tracing software, whether it be Illustrator or not, that you can find a heart somewhere on the vast internet and create a vector image there. So I just pulled it straight onto here. I created this heart in Illustrator from a bitmap image. That's my heart. And then we're going to need the photo of the player. So this one happens to be one of our loyal clients, her handsome young son. And I'm just going to make that a little bit bigger just to get an idea of what my scale is going to be. If you want to bring any other elements in at this point, let's say for instance, I know that these are tigers. I'm assuming these are Chipley tigers. Oh, actually, no, these are Graceville tigers because I see that G. So Graceville tigers are going to be orange and black. So I have some tiger eyes that I may bring in. And then there's one more element. Oh, I have some tiger text that I may use. And right now these are PSBs, meaning that they're just large Photoshop documents. Whenever you get something that's too big, you can always save it as a PSB, and it allows you to save a little bit bigger file size in Photoshop. But this is just some tiger text that I made previous, where it has a little bit of the tiger texture and it fades or has a gradient into a solid color. The eyes, of course we have the heart. And then we're going to do some cool effects. So we might do clouds, make it look like smoke. We might do paint splash, whatever our hearts desire today. Pun intended. Alright, so let's start with the text. The text is the easy part. Sometimes it's not if you don't have your fonts chosen, which this time I did not choose my fonts. So we're going to have fun picking them together. So let's start off with typing the text. And the text is going to read the heart is going to be the word for heart, and then we'll toggle back on our inspiration is on that field. Is on, and then I'm just going to hold down my Alt key to duplicate that text layer, and then I will type that field. And if we want to go ahead and play with our fonts here, I'm going to make sure we go to our properties, and we dealt with a script font for the inspirational image, and I'm going to turn the heart off for just a second so we can see, because this is a black shirt. And then I'm going to make my text white just so I can see what's going on right now. So go to properties, go to my color of my text, and let's just make it something weird. So whether it's on black or white, we'll see it. Usually I use like a hot pink, magenta, cyan, really bright color, because I know I'm not going to be using that color anywhere in my design. Now that field is on all caps right now, so we are going to change that so that it's off all caps. There we go. So we went to our advanced text settings. So we're going to take all caps off. As a matter of fact, all of this probably has all caps on, because the last time I was typing, I was doing more of a jersey look and all of my text needed to be capitalized. So I'm liking this font. What is it called? This font is called Master of Comics. So if I wanted to choose the same font for everything, I can select all my text by clicking on the first layer. And if it's all together, I can shift click on the last layer. But if it's not all together, you can hold down Control and then select the individual layers at a time. Now I have all 3 text layers selected. Of course, my font isn't going to be the same because there are different fonts on these layers. And I'm going to make it all this Master of Comics. And I still have all 3 layers selected. Right now, I just want to select my. So I'm going to right click and I can get the my. Control T allows me to transform it. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it diagonal, just like the inspirational image is on. It's going to right on top of the image eventually. And the client asked me to put that field instead of the field, so I'm going to follow directions and put that field. And then once we get everything layered, I'll probably put is on a little bit higher. Okay, so we have our layout for the text. Now we need to take our heart and figure out where we want to put it. And right now I'm going to do a color overlay. So I'm going to go to my effects, color overlay, and again I'm just going to choose some kind of crazy color just so that everything that I'm working on is visible. Alright, and now I can get rid of my background image. I don't need it anymore. Now we get our basic layout. We can see where we need to move things. So the heart absolutely needs to move to the back. I can move my word my up a little bit. And this is a 13 by 19 workspace here, so we can print as big as we'd like to as long as it fits on this artboard. And we'll play with the placement too. Alright, so now we get into the fun part, which is pulling in our images. So let's say I want to use my tiger eyes. This is something that I have already played with and created this look. So I'm going to show you how to recreate it if you were doing this from scratch. Right now I'm just going to pull in these tiger eyes just like I would off of the internet. And what you see right now is a layer mask. That black and white layer that's to the right of the thumbnail here. So I'm going to disable the layer mask so you see what this looks like. It's just a random image picked from the internet, and a mask was created in order to allow certain parts of the image to show through. Now I'm going to show you how to achieve this mask. And all I did was I dragged my mask to the photo layer just so that I could keep it for right now, because I want to be able to drag it back down. But we're going to show you how to create your own mask. So at this point in time, if we wanted to simply clip this inside of the heart, all we would have to do is make sure the tiger eyes was right above the heart, right click, and create a clipping mask. Now, because this has a color effect on it right now, that's why you didn't see it. But I took the color effect off, and now you can see the tiger is exactly placed inside of the shape. Now, this is something we're going to use over and over and over again in Photoshop. This is probably going to be one of your best friends. However, I want to modify it even more because I wanted it to have like an artistic edge to it. So the way that I can do that is I can take this image, whether it's clipped inside of the heart or not. I'm actually going to release the clipping mask for right now because I want to show you how to create this mask here regardless of whether you have it clipped in a pattern or a shape. So let us begin. We're going to click on the layer mask icon down at the bottom option here, and it starts out as white. So I want you to think about how the white and black works when it's a layer mask. So the black conceals and the white reveals. So if you think about what you like to wear on a regular basis, when you're feeling a little bit extra thick and chunky, you like to wear your black to kind of hide. That's how you remember what black does. When you're not feeling so slim and you stay away from white because white reveals, I'm sure we can get this analogy here. So we have a whiteboard here. We're going to take the paintbrush, and instead of painting directly onto the tiger face, because that's destructive, we don't want to destroy the original image. We want to play around it with the mask because we can always reveal or take or conceal part of the image on the mask. Right now I have a paintbrush selected, and it's a paintbrush that I made. And I'm going to show you here some different ones that I have. Let's see. I'm looking for one that's going to be more cloudy. And you may or may not have brushes like this. So I have clouds here. And I can't paint directly on this because it is a smart object. I don't want to rasterize in order to play with it. I want to make certain that I'm only painting on the mask and not on the original image. And then you want to make sure that you have the default black selected. If you don't, let's say for instance you already had some color selected here that was not your default color, you can always select the default swatches, and I'm going to bring the black to the foreground because that's what I want to be painting with. I'm going to right click, get a really big brush, and it's not showing so much because this brush is not very opaque. So let me choose another one that might be a little more opaque. There we go. Now we're getting somewhere. It's very subtle right now. I've got my opacity to 100 and the flow is only on 55. So I'm going to turn the flow up to 100, and that'll start to eat away at this image a little bit quicker. And as you can see, the edges of my paintbrush are now creating a mask. And if I keep clicking in the same spot, it'll get more and more intense in that area. Eventually, it will go completely away. And you can use different brushes. So if you don't want the same effect over and over again, you can also rotate your brushes too. So I could choose a different brush, choose a different cloud. Let's see what this one does. And right now the heart is black. I'm going to change the opacity and pull it down just a little bit so I can see what's really happening with my mask. And you can see on the mask layer how it's kind of artistically eating it away, kind of making it look like a watercolor, or like how a slate has these raw edges. That's what we're doing to it. And it gives it a little bit of a smoky appearance. So now I can go in and let's say I wanted it to look a little more artistic. I have some splashes. Let's choose one of our splashes here. And remember, we can add to and take away. So let's say I've eaten away a little too much, which let me reduce this brush size so I can give a demonstration of that. And you can also, you don't have to click. You can actually drag the brushes. I tend to click because it gives me a little more control, and I don't want a continuous brush right now. I want it to have all this character that comes with using these different brushes. Okay, so let's say, bam, I took away too much of his eye, and I want that eye back, or at least enough of it to where it's recognizable. So I'm going to actually turn my brush, instead of the black, I'm going to change it over to the white, and I can click right back on that and bring that back. And as you can see, the areas in which I'm clicking is becoming a lot more vibrant because I'm adding that back to the layer mask. Now I can go back to one of my clouds, and if I felt like it was a little too bright and vibrant, I can go back with the black and I can go take some away. And for right now, I'm just going to make sure I'm clean around here. I don't have anything hanging outside that I don't want. And we're still going to clip it inside of the heart anyway. So let's go ahead and do that again. I'm going to right click and create a clipping mask. And now that is entirely inside of this heart. Now the reason why it is not completely visible and opaque is because I have turned down the opacity on this heart. So I'm going to turn up the opacity here. My heart is filled with blue, right? I'm sorry. It has a blue overlay, but it's black right now. So we're going to see if that's how we want to keep it or whatever we want to do. Let's bring back our photo. And then I had saved this layer mask because I wasn't sure what we were going to come up with and if I was going to like it. So I think I'm good with this. So I'm going to delete that layer mask. We don't need it anymore. And now I have a photo layered on a heart that has tiger eyes set into this heart clipping mask. So we already have a pretty dynamic image, and we're going to do it up a little bit more. So for the text, this is not a vector file or an SVG. So we're going to print this sublimation. It's going to be printed full color, no limitations. So that's why I really like to show out with sublimation. So I like to do gradients. I like to do drop shadows, things that you just cannot do with your vinyl cutter. So let's go with one of my favorite things to do is a gradient overlay. And I am making this up as I go along, so y'all forgive me if I go a little back and forth with myself. And these are gradients that you can save. I don't have one for Gracefield right now, which would be the orange and black, so I chose this one that I had saved for a Miami colorway. And we're just going to click on that gradient, or you could have chosen any gradient that you already have in the system. And let's delete the green. And I think we're just going to do two colors. I don't think I'm going to put the white in there. So I can take my white stop, click on the color, And I can select any color that's on him, on the background, in the image, anywhere on here. I'm going to choose the black heart, say OK. And then I can adjust it to show more or less of one of the colors. And then I can bring the colors close together if I don't want it to have a spread between the gradient. But I like the spread on this one. All right, the next thing that I like to do is add a stroke of some sort. Usually I will put it on the outside, make it a little bit thinner, and then I use a drop shadow. So I'm going to check off drop shadow and see what I have there. And for my drop shadow, I'm going to choose black. And I'm going to play with the distance of the spread until I get it to something that I want to see. And really I do this, I don't know where I got this effect style from. I think people used to do this effect when they wanted something to look like a sticker, and it just kind of stuck. So it's one of my favorite styles to do. And for the stroke, we could do a gradient, we can do a color, we can do a pattern. Let me show you what a gradient looks like. And let's say, although they're not doing gold, I can do a gradient, and then I can do another stroke that will immediately line up on top of that one. I can do that one a color, and let's say the color that I choose, I want it to be like a silver color. So right now it's a solid gray, but I can play with the blend mode and make that gray layer play on top of that gradient gold that I had selected, so that it looks more like silver. There we go. So I chose the hue option. And if I don't like that, I can come back down to my gradient, and I have a couple of different options for gradients there. And when the hue is selected, whatever colors and intensities of those colors are below, you're just going to basically use that as a gradient map for the color that you placed on top of it. So the more variations you have, the more up and downs you have, you'll be able to see those. So I'm going to stick with that for now, see if I like that. And then I might want to add a little three-dimensional look to the text. So I might hit bevel and emboss and see what that looks like. I can change my depth and my size to either make it really extreme or a little more subtle. And I'm fine with that for now. Now, you do not have to do this over and over again. If you have what you want selected for the first set of text, I can right click now, I can copy that layer style, and I can paste it on another layer. Paste layer style. So now that same set of effects that I chose for the my is automatically propagated to the is on, and guess what? I can put it on the field too. So I'm going to right click here. I'm going to show you how to not necessarily have to sift through all of your layers over on the right side. I'm going to right click, and anything that I'm touching is going to give me options. So if there were several things here, it might be a list of things that I'm touching. Right now, the only thing that I'm touching is the background in that field. So I'm going to select that field. It highlights it over on the right hand side. Now I can right click, paste the layer style. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm probably going to end up changing that because it's not really doing what I want it to do. But for right now, I'm going to leave it alone because I have some other things I want to do. For the heart, I think the heart is a little bit dark. I want to add maybe some color to it, possibly, you know, some paint splatter or something to make it look a little more artsy. So let's get into that. So first thing I'm going to do is create a new layer, and I can be anywhere, but I want to be on top of the clipping mask, because if I create a new layer between these two, it's going to clip it to the heart. And right now I want to play with painting on top of the heart to see if I want anything to kind of come on the outside or not. So I'm going to choose my brush tool off of the toolbar, and let's see what brush I want to select. I know I'm definitely looking for something artsy, maybe paint splattery, and you'll see that these are some previews of the brush styles here, but you really don't know what it looks like until you literally apply it to the canvas. So let's try this one. And it gives you a preview when it comes up of what it's going to look like. I'm going to click off to the side just so I can really get an idea. And one thing I do not like to do, and that's why I'm on a new layer, I cannot stand it if my brushes go outside of the edges of the paper, and then when I print something, it has crisp lines that cut off my art. That is one of my pet peeves, so I do everything that I can to avoid that. Alright, so we did get a paint splash here, but let me undo that for a second. I'm going to choose orange, and I'm going to choose an orange that's already in my graphic by holding down the Alt key, and then it becomes a color picker temporarily. I'm going to select orange, and then that way when I put a color splash on here, I can really see it. Okay, so I can fool with that. Later, what I'll do is I'll play with my fill, maybe even the opacity, and bring it down once I deal with my layers. I might even do a layer mask and make some of the image more visible than others, kind of fade it out. But let's see, I have a little orange paint splash. Let's also go behind the heart. Let's add a new layer there. And let's say I want to do, let's do a black splash. Let's try that. So now I'm going to choose a new brush because I don't want to do the exact same splash pattern. I'm going to try something else. Maybe I'll do more of a scattered splash pattern. This one ought to be pretty cool. I'm going to click outside of that so I can see what I'm doing. I might have to bring this size down just a little bit. And it's okay if bringing the size down makes it smaller, it's perfectly fine. Matter of fact, I'm going to do that on purpose so I can show you that you can always expand it. So now I have the orange selected as my foreground color. I want the black, so I'm going to hold down Alt so I can use my artboard as a color palette. Select the black, and I'm going to click one good time. You can't really see what it looks like quite yet, so I'm going to Control T, and that allows me to transform this. And right now I'm pulling it by this corner so that it remains proportional, but this is a paint splash, so I don't have to have it proportional. And I'm going to hit enter so we can rasterize that and see if that's what I like. I'm not sure yet. I don't know if I'm liking this. What I might do is take the fill down just to make it more of like a light gray. And I'm more okay with that than I am with that as a black. Now let me see if I can maybe do one more paint layer that's actually going to excite me. So far, let's see, more of a drip. That might do it for me. Let's see. And again, this paintbrush is a little bit bigger than what I want it to be on this canvas. So I'm going to right click, and I can manually change these numbers too. Maybe I'll change it to 2900 and see what that looks like. Still too big. 2700. Oh, I'll put 3700. 2700. It looks like that'll fit on there. Almost. Like I said, I would rather it be a little too small and scale it up than for it to be too big and then you don't notice it until you print it out and you're really mad at yourself, because the reason why you do sublimation is so that it doesn't look like you have a box on your shirt. But then you turn around. Oh, you know what I just did? I painted this on the same layer. So I'll show you what that did. So it gave it that same level of opacity, which actually doesn't look bad. But I like to do it on different layers because I can always change my opacity independently. If you paint on a layer that already has something on it, those images are merged together automatically. So now I'm on a new layer, it's automatically got an opacity of 100% and a fill of 100%. So when I paint, it's going to give me that 100%. And I'm going to play with putting this underneath the heart. I'm going to delete my inspiration image. I'm going to start keeping my files as clean as possible. And I'm just collapsing my layer effect so that I don't see so much junk when I'm scrolling down my layers. I can really see what I'm working with. And for my orange, I'm still deliberating on whether I want my orange to have full opacity or in certain areas I want it to be a little bit less opaque. So I can do that also with a layer mask. I can take my brush tool. Now I can brush with the texture brushes. And as a matter of fact, that gives you a whole nother look. So I'm going to make that a little bit smaller. And these brushes go from like 0 to 100 real quick. I don't understand the scale of these sometimes, especially when you get down here to the bigger size brushes. So let's say I'm not destructively doing anything to my orange paint splash. I am simply taking the layer mask area using another paintbrush tool just to give it a little more dimension, cut some things out that I might not want to see, and then I can always add stuff back. If I control minus, I'll zoom out. And this is also how I go around and ensure that I don't have randomness coming off the side of my page that I don't want. And right now it looks pretty artsy. I'm liking it a little bit more. I may take the heart silhouette and let's add some color to the background of here. So I'm going to add a new layer. And of course that layer, because I put it between the clipped eyes and the heart shape, it created a new layer that's going to be clipped to the heart shape. So whatever I do in this layer, I won't be able to see what goes outside of the heart, which is what I want. So let's say for the heart layer, I want to give it like a little stone gray look. Or since we say my heart is on that field, maybe I want to look for a picture of a football field. Let's see what we can come up with. Good old Google-age. Football field. And we can do background. Some images. And because this is such a small area, typically what I do whenever I'm looking for graphics, I go to tools, I go to size and large, and I don't look at anything smaller than large, especially when it's something that's very easy to find, like a football field image. Let's see, I want to find some with maybe some lights, a little perspective. This one shows well. And I'm going to right click, save image as. Football field, background. Now I'm going to straight drag it from the internet onto my artboard, and I'm going to show you what it did. Because I dragged it between these two layers, it now clipped these top layers to this image I just drug in instead of clipping it to the heart. And that's fine, because I can click on this football field, I can create a clipping mask, and now it's going to clip it to what is beneath it. So now all of these things are clipped to the heart once again. So I'm going to Control T on this background image, Control T, that way I can transform it, drag it out, and I'm going to make it as big as I need to so that I can see this field, because that's the whole purpose of it. It's supposed to say my heart is on that field, so I want to see some field. There we go. And I'm okay with that. I got a little more orange in front of the tiger's eye than I like, but I might end up making the tiger eyes a little bit bigger anyway. So let me Control T that and scale that up a little bit, see if that's what I want. Yeah. And then I feel like my black splash in the background, which is layer 3, I'm going to name it black splash. I feel like it's taking away from that heart because it's sitting right smack dab in the middle where you would typically see that indentation to the heart. So I may bring it down just a little so I get more of that intentional heart shape. Same thing with this orange right here. It's doing the same thing. It's taking away from my heart bump. So right now it's labeled as layer 1. I'm going to label this as orange splash. Control T so that I can transform it. And I'm just moving it around. It's still got that layer mask on it, so wherever I'm moving it, it may look a little bit different than before. And like I said, I was going to come back and do something with this text as soon as I figured out what my foreground image was going to look like. So I think what I'm going to do for the stroke is just let it be clean and white, because I have so much going on with the artsy splashes that I want to just let my stroke be clean. And instead of a gradient, let me just do white. I really like that. I like that. So if I want to do the same thing to the rest of the font, I'm going to copy layer style, rest of the text, excuse me. Let's go is on. See how I'm scrolling through my layers and I don't know where my stuff is because it just gets a little inundated. So I'm going to right click on is on. Hey, there's is on. And I can hold down the shift key so that the next thing that I click on, and when I selected that field, now it has selected both of those things. I can right click on one of them and paste layer style, and it's also going to paste the layer style on the other one because I did have it selected. Oh, there was something else I wanted to show you since we were getting into clipping masks. I wanted to show you how we did this tiger here. And this is text, a photo of a tiger, but what I'm going to do is just drag. You know what I need to do? Undo that. Let's close down some of these windows we don't need. This is a good lesson too, in not having too much junk open on Photoshop. And saving as you go. Lord have mercy. This is an untitled one. And then I would have an untitled mess if this computer crashed right now. So let us save. I'm going to save this as sports football player heart. And then before that, I'm going to put what the words are. So my heart is on that field. Football tiger paint splash. And the reason why I name my documents like this, because somebody will say, oh, remember that one where you did the splash with the tiger eyes, and yeah, all of that. So I'm going to even put tiger eyes in here. And tiger print fur. Yes, I do that because I'm telling you, when you're looking for file names and you're trying to create something similar and you just know you made something like that before, but you can't find out what you named it because it was named Untitled 1, You're gonna thank me one of these days. All right, so it's gonna be saved as Photoshop. Here we go. Photoshop PSD. If it gets really, really, really large, some of the times when I'm doing big banner designs or signs, I have to save it as a PSB because they're so large. Or if you try to export a smart object, it's going to save it as a PSB with a like B as in boy. But PSD is default. You should be good with that. You can also save it as a PDF. If you save it as a PDF, pretty much anyone can open it. You can even open them online. A PSD, you can only open if you have a Photoshop program or a program that can open Photoshop files. All right, so let me see if I'm done with this yet. I don't think I'm done with it. Let me take the heart, and I might add a stroke. Matter of fact, I already copied the layer style for the text. I'm going to paste the layer style for the text. And of course, it's got that gradient in there. But I can take my gradient layer, and instead of normal, I can choose different blend modes. Let's see if I like any of those blend modes. Somebody might like something like that, but then I don't see my field. Oh, I also have all that black down there. So let me just, a little less black, and I can see what's going on. So I'm just playing with my blend modes, and this is helpful just so that you get an idea of what's even possible in Photoshop, and the possibilities are literally endless. When you go playing with this opacity and that blend mode and these effects and that shadow, you can come up with a million different designs off of this one template. I kind of like that. What is that? That's hue. I like hue. But the green field does look pretty too. So I'm just a stickler for colors, especially when it's a theme color, and sometimes I'm a little too themey. But I liked hue. Overlay is kind of doing something for me, but not what I want. I think I like hue. If I took the gradient off completely, but you know what? No, I like the gradient off. Because I can see the green in the field and the tiger eyes stand out more. So we'll go with that and see if the client likes it. If I need to change anything, usually I let that be up to the client's discretion. But I will tell you this, when you have these type of designs and they're not expecting anything like this, normally they're expecting some very flat letters on top of a picture that's in a square. When you can show them art like this, most times they don't have too much to say about it, but they're in awe. Like, they will not, oh, well, can you just move this to the left and switch this picture out? They're usually like, oh my God, I love it. How soon can I pick it up? That's what I typically get. All right, so we're gonna pull this heart down in size just a little bit. So I am pulling from that corner so that it maintains aspect ratio, and I'm moving it over to the left just a little bit. And if I wanted to see if this was exactly center, I could actually move it, and you see that magenta line that's going up and down? That's telling me that's the center mark of my artboard. And I can go with that. And I think that I'm happy with this. If I want to see what it looks like, transparent. I have a white background that I can take off. And then I can preview this onto a shirt, like I do a mock-up on my website. So that's what I would typically show the customer, is the mock-up. But, oh yes, there was one more thing I was going to do. I was going to place the tiger print inside of, oh, let's close out of these tiger eyes. And we don't need to save anything there. But I'm going to take this tiger print which is literally from a tiger. I'm going to drop it into this text file. And it did clip it inside the heart, which is fine because we can move it wherever we like. And I want to clip it in the words "that field." Whoa, tiger's big. So if I want to clip it in that field, I'm going to right click, create a clipping mask. And right now I do not see the tiger stripes or anything because that field, if I expand the effects, it has a gradient overlay. So I'm going to take the gradient overlay off just so I can see where my stripes are. Control T is going to allow me to transform that. Right now it's huge. And I'm just going to move these stripes around until I get exactly what I want. Now the next thing that I'm going to do, this is a traditional tiger's color, but I really want it to be this nice pop of color orange. So I'm going to allow my gradient back on, but I'm going to double click on it. And so I'm going to click on the gradient overlay. Where it currently has black, I'm going to go to my color stop at the top, and right now the opacity is 100. I'm going to change the opacity to 0. What that does is it does not allow the color to be seen there, no matter whether it's black, orange, or anything else. So I'm thinking that I want to bring that here. And then I do want some more black. I do want a color stop here, and I'm going to make the color stop be 100 again. So what it's got is it's got some opaque orange. It's got where the transparency is, it's got the clipped image in there, and then I'm bringing that black out just a little bit. As a matter of fact, I think I'm going to bring this orange down and change that opacity to maybe 20% so that I get a little bit of that very vibrant orange on top of my stripes. And then I'm going to copy that layer style and paste it to my paste layer style. And the original color of the text was that magenta color, so that's why that's showing back through. However, if I take my tiger that's sunning and I'm going to Alt and start dragging, so what Alt is doing is just creating a copy of this. And I'm going to drag this to wherever my is. Drag it right above. And then I have to move the image to where when I clip it, you will actually see some of the pattern in there. I'm going to right click and create a clipping mask. And now I have some tiger stripes inside of there. I can move it along as I want. And let's see, maybe I'm going to capitalize the that in the field. Capital T. Take my S1. That, and then I'm going to capitalize my F2. Now I'm going to Control T. I'm going to squish this in. I don't typically squish font, but when I have to, I just do what I got to do. I'm squishing it in here so that I still maintain the height. But I'm able to fit it on one line of text. And I can keep playing with this all day, guys. I don't want you to feel like you have to do that and have to be perfect. Like I said, this is something that once you show it to a client, they will be more than elated to have this as a final product. So I think I'm going to call it a night on this one. I could put the stripes on the is on, but honestly I want that to kind of stay a little less noticeable. Matter of fact, I'm going to shrink it down a little bit so that it barely overlaps the field. There we go. And the reason why I'm kind of placing it over that helmet is because that helmet is a little bit cut into because the grass was there. And it kind of distracts you from that. So I believe that's going to be the end of this tutorial. Let me know if you guys have any questions. I'm fairly certain, I am quite positive you can do this on your own with a little bit of practice in Photoshop. We'll have a separate video that teaches you how to contour cut your photos, which is just a lesson in and of itself because there's so many different ways you can do it. But there are also people that you can send your graphics to where they can cut your graphics out until you get really confident with that. But practice makes perfect, so I'm going to encourage you to do it yourself until you get it right. That would be the end of this design. I'm going to go through my layers really quick just to show you. We have black splash, we have our heart, which we used to make a clipping mask for the football field. I'll turn it off and on so you can see those elements. I'll turn the black splash off and on. Here's your heart. If it was completely on, what you'd be looking at. That's the field inside of the heart. There's your tiger eyes, and then your tiger eyes also has a layer mask. I'm going to disable that layer mask so you can see what that does. It definitely makes a difference. I'm going to enable it again. You have your orange, and then the black splash that I let be less opaque, so I'm going to call that gray splash, but really it's black, it's just not so opaque. We've got the word my, and with my we have a couple of things going on. We have the gradient, and we also have the outline or the stroke that's on it with the drop shadow. Those things you will find in your effects, so I'll expand that so you can see what all we have going on. Oh yeah, we also have a bevel and emboss on there to make it look a little more 3D. And then we have the image of the tiger clipped into the letters. Same thing with the that field. We actually copied and pasted that same exact layer effect. And then of course we have the photo itself, our foreground image. And that's it, guys. That's in a nutshell a very complicated looking Photoshop file with just a few effects and a few layers. Alright, this is Shannon signing off for now, and if you have any questions, let me know. If you would like to purchase any of the templates that I create or I make with these practice sessions, please comment and let me know, and I will make them available for you. Alrighty guys, talk to you later.